The sheep screamed. Strangers attacked Jason Hammond's flock with electric clippers. The wool belonged to the U.S. Army.
Keep the clippers moving. Every fleece helps the homeless shelter buy blankets.
A young ewe fell, a shearer's clumsy hand slicing her skin. Blood soaked the wool. Polyester fibers and dirt were already tangled into the fleeces, ruining them for any textile use. Jason's truck skidded to a stop at the gate.
What the hell is going on here? Those are federally contracted animals.
I am Charlotte Hartley, HOA Community Engagement. We're hosting a charity sheep shearing.
Charity? You've destroyed a military wool supply worth $18 million. The contract auto-terminates. If the fleeces aren't certified pure, $18 million gone.
She walked away, volunteers trailing, leaving Jason alone with the contamination that would cost him his contract. But the confrontation wasn't over. A sheriff's SUV pulled up, lights flashing. Officer Dana Chen stepped out, hand on her holster, assessing the chaos.
These sheep are under a Department of Defense contract. Their wool is worth $18 million. This is a federal crime scene.
Federal crime. Don't be dramatic. We had community consent. This is a charity event for the homeless shelter.
Mrs. Hartley, I need you and your volunteers to leave this property immediately. We can sort out the details later.
Charlotte smiled, triumphant, and led her volunteers to their cars, leaving Jason seething. Jason knelt beside a ewe whose wool was matted with blood. He touched her trembling shoulder, checking the wound.
She didn't even apologize. The sheep are bleeding because of her charity. If the DOD pulls the contract, I lose $18 million. I can't let that happen.
He pulled out his phone, found the contact marked Captain Webb, and pressed call.
Captain Webb? It's Jason Hammond. The flock has been illegally sheared. The wool is ruined.
Ruined? Explain, Hammond. That wool is for dress uniforms. The spec is USDA superfine.
An HOA woman led volunteers onto my land. They sheared 480 merinos with zero training. The fleeces are full of blood and synthetic lint.
Contamination of any kind voids the purity clause. I need photographic evidence. Send it immediately.
Jason sent the photos, close-ups of bloody nicks, blue fibers embedded in the creamy wool.
I see nylon threads and blood stains. This is a complete failure of standards. Hammond, this lot is unsalvageable. The contract could terminate.
Terminate. The word hit like a physical blow. $18 million a year, gone because of a charity stunt. Captain, what do I do? This wasn't my doing. The woman just walked away like it was nothing.
I am dispatching an inspector from Fort Carson. He'll be there within 24 hours. Don't touch anything. Document every fleece.
The call ended. Jason stood inside the barn, staring at the framed Department of Defense contract and an old photo of his grandfather. The weight of $18 million settled on his chest. The next morning, a military Humvee and a staff car pulled up to the barn. Captain Webb had not waited 24 hours.
Show me the wool. Hammond, every bale. He pulled a fleece from the pile. Nylon threads and blood, plain as day. This is a total loss.
The inspector stamped the USDA inspection form. Failed. Beneath it, the contract termination notice.
Effective immediately. Your contract with the Department of Defense is terminated. You will forfeit the full delivery penalty.
Forfeit. The word meant he owed the government money, not the other way around.
Jason took the paper, his hands trembling. $18 million, gone before lunch.
And here is our event. The homeless shelter will have blankets for winter, all thanks to our volunteers.
The HOA board applauded, unaware their chair had just cost the U.S. Army $18 million. Charlotte beamed, promising more community events, while Jason stood in his barn, holding the termination notice. 2 days later, a certified letter from the Department of Defense arrived at the HOA office. It was addressed to Charlotte Hartley personally.
$18 million. They're demanding the full contract amount from us personally.
She snatched up her phone and called the HOA's insurance agent, her voice shaking.
I have a directors and officers policy. The HOA is being sued by the U.S. government. I need coverage.
The agent's tone went cold. Intentional acts by board members were excluded from the policy.
Intentional? I was organizing a charity event, not plotting to breach a military contract. That's absurd.
The following morning, a federal marshal appeared at her front door with a civil complaint naming her individually. The HOA board convened an emergency session that night. Voices were raised and fingers pointed.
I could lose my house, my savings, everything I worked for, all for a charity event.
While Charlotte's world crumbled, Jason's attorney was building a case around a little-known clause, third-party interference indemnity. In a makeshift legal office, a federal attorney slid the terminated contract across the table. His finger stopped on a yellow highlighted clause. Third-party interference indemnity. The clause allowed the Department of Defense to recover the entire contract sum, plus penalties, directly from any third party who caused the breach.
So the government can go after Charlotte for the entire 18 million?
The attorney confirmed, Charlotte Hartley and the HOA board, personally.
So I don't have to lift a finger? The Army's lawyers handle it?
A grim satisfaction settled on the attorney's face. The federal machine was already moving.
18 million in liability. And I'm not pulling the trigger. Charlotte has no idea what's coming.
Jason signed the authorization for the DOD to pursue the third-party claim. Outside, Jason looked at his ranch truck. For the first time, he felt like the victim of a crime that might actually be punished. At the next board meeting, Charlotte tried to shift the blame. The volunteers had acted without her knowledge, she claimed.
They bought cheap clippers themselves. I only suggested the event. I never told them to muddy the fleece.
But the board had the flyers with her name and the email she sent to the volunteers. Her defense crumbled.
They're going to throw me under the bus. The HOA cares more about liability than loyalty.
A motion to remove her as community engagement chair passed unanimously. Charlotte was a private citizen now, facing federal charges alone. Later that evening, a courier delivered an accounting from the Department of Defense's attorneys. The document calculated her personal share of the damages, trespass, contamination, and the voided contract. The bottom line, $942,000. Her breath stopped.
Almost $1 million. My retirement, my reputation, my home, all for a charity sheep shearing.
The HOA board had cut her loose. Her insurance was void. Charlotte Hartley was on her own. At the federal deposition, Charlotte's attorney painted her as a naive volunteer who never imagined she was interfering with a military contract.
I believed it was vacant common land. There were no signs, no warnings. I organized a charity, not a crime.
The government attorney slid a photograph across the table. It showed a prominent no trespassing U.S. government livestock sign. Another photo displayed Jason's framed Department of Defense contract hanging inside his barn in plain sight.
She's lying. I shouted the contract details at her face. She heard me. She just didn't care.
During a recess, Charlotte's lawyer floated a settlement, $500,000 in exchange for dropping the suit. Jason's attorney relayed the offer. Jason shook his head without hesitation.
500,000 won't mend 480 sheep. The contract is gone because of her. Let the judge decide.
The rejection was formalized. Charlotte's lawyer stared at the floor. A federal trial was now unavoidable. The federal judge accepted the case and set a trial date for early spring. Charlotte Hartley would face the full weight of the U.S. government. Before the trial began, a pre-trial hearing turned catastrophic. The government attorney cited a rarely used provision of the indemnity rider.
For a charity event? They're claiming willful interference? This can't be happening.
The provision allowed treble damages for intentional third-party interference. The demand was amended to $54 million. Charlotte's personal share, calculated from the new total, suddenly reached $1.5 million.
I can't pay $1.5 million. I've never had that kind of money. My home, everything I own, it's not enough.
The judge granted an immediate asset freeze. Charlotte's bank accounts, her home equity, her investments, all frozen pending judgment.
My checking account. How am I supposed to pay my mortgage? Buy food? This is absurd.
Her attorney had no comfort to offer. The treble damages clause was airtight, and the government showed no inclination to negotiate further.
Everything I built, gone. And for what? A few fleecies for the homeless shelter.
But the worst was still ahead. The trial would decide whether she owed merely millions or spent years in a federal prison. 3 days before trial, Charlotte's sedan kicked up gravel at Hammond Ranch. She'd come alone. Jason was spreading alfalfa. He straightened, saw her face, and knew exactly why she was here.
Please, Mr. Hammond. I'll sell my house, my jewelry, anything. Just drop the claim.
The claim belongs to the Department of Defense. I couldn't stop it now if I wanted to.
He's not even considering it. I'm going to lose everything. You are enjoying this. You just want to watch me burn.
I am not enjoying anything. I am still nursing yous your volunteers cut open.
She fell to her knees in the dirt, sobbed once, then stumbled back to her car without another word. Jason watched her sedan disappear down the county road. He didn't move for a long time. The trial would proceed. Charlotte Hartley had nothing left to offer. The federal courtroom was packed. Jason Hammond took the oath first, his voice steady but heavy.
My flock produces USDA superfine merino wool. Every fleece must be pristine. No blood, no synthetic fibers, or the entire lot is rejected. I could see the damage from 100 yards. Their electric clippers had cut skin, and nylon threads from their jackets were tangled in the wool.
On arrival, I inspected every bale. The contamination was uniform: synthetic lint, dirt, blood. The lot was unfit for dress uniforms and failed USDA inspection.
Webb held up the contamination photos. Blue nylon threads glinting under the courtroom lights.
They're making me look like a saboteur. All I wanted was to help the homeless shelter.
Her attorney stood, attempting to portray her as a community volunteer who made an honest mistake. The prosecution countered with a photograph of the ranch gate, a sign reading "No Trespassing." U.S. government livestock that Charlotte had ignored.
She saw that sign. She heard me shout. She knew. The ignorance defense is nothing.
Charlotte's face was pale. The evidence of willful interference was now in the official record. The judge cleared her throat and began reading her findings. Charlotte Hartley is found civilly liable for willfully interfering with a federal contract. This court now moves to a damages hearing. Charlotte's legs buckled. Her attorney grabbed her elbow, his own face ashen.
Liable. Debtor to the United States. Everything I own is already frozen.
The prosecution rose, demanding the full $54 million in treble damages, plus permanent restrictions on her activities. Her attorney pleaded for leniency, citing years of community service and a genuine, if misguided, charitable motive. The judge's expression hardened as she noted that Charlotte had ignored a prominent federal sign.
She's not buying the charity defense. The homeless shelter means nothing to her.
The judge would delay formal sentencing for 1 hour. Charlotte Hartley sat alone, her future hanging on a number. The courtroom fell silent as the judge returned to the bench. The sentencing order was in her hand. The court fines Charlotte Hartley $940,000 payable to the United States Treasury.
$940,000. Every penny I've saved, plus my house.
You are ordered to complete 300 hours of supervised community service at the County Animal Rescue, performing sheep shearing duties.
Shearing. At a rescue, she's making me do the very thing that ruined me.
The HOA is permanently barred from organizing any event within 1 mile of Hammond Ranch. In addition, you face federal misdemeanor charges for unauthorized livestock handling under state statute.
Criminal charges. A record. That could mean jail time, even after I pay the fine.
The judge's gavel fell with a sound like a lock snapping shut. It was over. Jason Hammond watched from the gallery, his face unreadable. Charlotte Hartley did not move. Charlotte checked in at the County Rescue Center, trading her pink blazer for an orange community service vest. The supervisor handed her a pair of hand shears and pointed toward a muddy holding pen. Hands trembling, she took the shears. The sheep waiting in the mud was a battered Texel with a distrustful eye.
I've never sheared an animal in my life. My hands are raw from the cold.
She placed the blades against the Texel's side. The sheep twisted, the cut jagged, leaving a scattered half fleece. A hoof caught her knee, and Charlotte fell sideways into the muck. Shears clattering, Jason stood at the rescue fence, his arms crossed, his work boots dry.
He's watching. That rancher came all the way here to watch me wallow.
She pushed herself up. her once pristine vest smeared, and grabbed the shears again. The supervisor marked only half an hour on her timesheet. Charlotte had 300 hours to go. A month after sentencing, Captain Webb parked his Humvee beside the barn. He was carrying a thick folder.
Your record is spotless. Except for this incident, the department is prepared to offer a new contract. Same amount, enhanced indemnity.
The cover page showed the familiar Department of Defense seal, but now with an added rider, third-party immunity protections.
They wrote her name into federal law. No one will ever misuse my flock again.
Separately, your flock has been granted federal protected livestock designation. Any unauthorized handling is now a felony.
The certificate, signed by the Secretary of the Army, listed every ewe by tag number.
So anyone who crosses my fence line for any reason faces federal charges. Even a misplaced charity event?
Especially a charity event. The Hartley precedent ensures the department will prosecute third-party interference to the fullest extent.
My grandfather's ranch is now a federal asset. Charlotte didn't just lose. She made us unassailable.
Jason took the new contract in both hands and thanked the captain. The terms would be signed the following week. A week later, Jason signed the new contract. Captain Webb witnessed, an Army photographer documenting the moment.
$18 million a year, renewed. And this time, no HOA chair can touch it.
New signage went up at every gate. Protected livestock area. Unauthorized entry is a federal felony. A military Humvee now patrolled the perimeter during shearing season. Soldiers carried M4S on shearing day. Professional shearers arrived. Their clippers sterilized and their jackets cotton.
Every fleece will be inspected on site. No synthetic fibers, no blood, or it doesn't leave this barn.
Last time, amateurs bled my ewes. This time, the Army's watching.
The shearers worked swiftly, each fleece falling whole onto a clean canvas. USDA graders tagged every bale. By evening, the first shipment rolled toward Fort Carson, the wool-certified superfine. Hammond Ranch was operational again, the contract stronger than ever. Charlotte Hartley was still at the rescue, 300 hours to go. At a local diner, the noon news flashed a clip of Charlotte Hartley in her orange vest, struggling to shear a rescue sheep. The chyron read, HOA chair sentenced to shear after ruining $18 million military contract. Charlotte heard it, too. A volunteer mentioned the segment, and she turned her head away, cheeks burning.
Even the news won't let me forget. I'm a joke now.
The HOA's boardroom was quiet. A spring community shearing flyer lay crumpled on the floor, never to be issued. With the permanent ban on events near the ranch, the HOA was little more than a defunct mailing list. Charlotte finished her shift and walked the rural road to her car, her community service t-shirt untucked, her head bowed.
300 hours. I'll be here until the sheep recognize me.
A few miles away, the county paper ran a different story. DOD awards $18 million, contract extension to rancher after HOA fiasco. Jason Hammond read it at the same diner, a quiet smile at his lips. By the time the leaves turned, Charlotte Hartley had logged her 300 hours. She dropped her orange vest on the supervisor's desk and walked out without a word. She applied for a job at a small petting zoo, the only place that didn't ask about her federal conviction. Hammond Ranch, meanwhile, was thriving. The flock's fleeces graded superfine across the board, and the Army had just signed a 2-year contract extension. Jason hand-fed a ewe, the same one whose skin had been nicked by Charlotte's volunteers. At the entrance, the new permanent sign stood under the flag. U.S. Army wool supplier and protected livestock area. A military Humvee patrolled the fence line, the soldiers inside giving Jason a nod. Charlotte Hartley was a footnote now, her name occasionally surfacing in county legal notices. Jason leaned against the new gate, watching the flock graze, the weight of the last year finally lifting. One clear November morning, 2 Army staff cars pulled up at the ranch. Captain Webb led a small delegation. They assembled by the new sign. Jason came from the barn in a clean flannel, his boots polished.
Jason Hammond, for unwavering service to the Army's dress Unistrom's dress units dress on uniform program, despite extraordinary interference. I present this commendation.
He pinned the medal onto Jason's chest. The soldiers snapped a crisp salute. Jason's eyes drifted toward the barn window. Inside, his grandfather's photograph sat on the sill, an old soldier in the same uniform.
He'd be proud. His land still serves.
Additionally, this certification of excellence confirms Hammond Ranch as the sole source for Army Merino wool.
Jason accepted it, the metal cool against his chest. The certificate listed his flock's grade, superfine, 100% of the lot. The ceremony ended with a final salute. The soldiers returned to their vehicles, leaving Jason alone at the gate. Behind him, the flock grazed under federal protection. The commendation was a piece of paper, but the medal meant no one would ever question this land again. One Sunday, a thick national newspaper arrived at the ranch. The front page held a headline that felt personal. The article described the ruined fleeces, the indemnity rider, and the protected livestock designation in detail. It mentioned Charlotte Hartley by name, her community service, and the HOA's permanent ban.
National Inc. She'll never live this down.
Later that morning, he peeled the backing off a new sticker and pressed it onto his truck's tailgate.
That's not bragging. That's a warning.
He returned to the porch with the paper, reading the final paragraphs about the Army's renewed contract.
$18 million, and all it cost was one woman's arrogance.
He folded the paper with a quiet finality, the article now a part of the ranch's history. Jason stood and walked toward the barn, the weight of the last year replaced by something simpler. At twilight, Jason walked the fence line. A few ewes followed, their bells soft in the dusk. He stopped at the ancient oak where his grandfather's dog tags hung from a bent nail. He touched the worn metal, a half smile finding its way to his face. The ranch spread out behind him, the flock grazing under the new protected sign. He stood there as the sky deepened, his hand still on the bark. Inside the barn, the old photograph caught the last light, a soldier who never let go. Jason didn't need to say anything. The land was finally quiet. He walked back to the barn, the ewes settled, the metal cool on his chest. At the porch, he poured coffee and sat, watching the stars emerge. The ranch was his. The contract was secure. The sheep would sleep well. Dawn crept over Hammond Ranch, turning the pasture to gold and catching the new sign at the gate. The DOD seal gleamed above the words, Protected Livestock Area. Unauthorized entry is a federal felony. A military Humvee rolled through the fence line, the soldier inside lifting a casual salute. On the porch, Jason lifted his coffee. The commendation medal hung from his flannel shirt.
$18 million is a number. Knowing your family's land is safe forever. That's a reckoning.
The ewes grazed without a care, their superfine fleeces already spoken for. He glanced toward the ancient oak, the dog tags catching the sun, and nodded once. The Army's protection was no longer a contract clause. It was a permanent fact on the ground. The sun rose higher, and the ranch seemed to exhale, the last tension melting away, and the sheep wandered across the green fields, their bells a quiet song under an open, untouchable sky.